Good evening, members. Hello, thank you for being here. I'm just going to read out the fire evacuation procedures for the evening meetings. There are no fire alarms scheduled for this evening. Therefore, if the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately. The fire exit is located at the rear of this room. Go down the stairs unless otherwise instructed and meet in War Memorial Park. Please remember that this meeting is being webcast live on the internet and behave accordingly, I suppose, is the implication. Mobile phones, please switch your phones off or turn them to silent. And can I please remind members and officers that in order to be heard clearly within the room by those present and on the webcast, that you must speak directly into your microphone. And that bit's for prayer. That's not relevant here, so I can move on. Before we go ahead, I just wanted to say, as this is the first licensing committee meeting of a new year, it's my first meeting as the new committee chair, or chair of anything actually, except for when I subbed in for Tony once last year, and it's also the first meeting of any council committee for some of you at all as newly elected members. So I thought it might be useful to just go through briefly how some of this works, because I found when I got elected that wasn't always necessarily explained, and how to do what and when to stick your hand in the air and stuff. So bear with me for a moment, those of you that have been around a little while. I thought it might be useful just to do that, because I think a lot of it is chair dependent as well, so it will give you a feel for how informally and on a friendly basis I hope we'll do things here. So we'll start with the usual fire evacuation as we've just done, apologies for absence, etc. Then we will ask, the next thing on the agenda is if anyone has any interests to disclose. If you're not sure what that means, or whether something you're involved in may qualify, talk to Phil, always. He's the man, and it's always better to ask just in case. We've got plenty of time to do that if you're not sure. Then we go to the minutes of the last meeting, which you'll all have read, of course, and assuming you were here last year, I'll ask if you were happy with them, and you can raise any points for correction or I will sign them off. And then we get to the meat of the agenda, and each item in turn will be introduced and presented by the officer who wrote the report. Then we'll get a chance, once they've done that intro, to discuss any points, raise any points or questions that you might have on that item. If you would like to raise a point at any time, just stick your hand in the air. We'll make a note of everyone that's done so, and I will call on people in the order that they raise their hand, hopefully. Won't always see everyone 100% of the time, obviously, but Phil will help with that, and just, keep sticking your hand in the air until one of us has nodded at you, and you will get your chance to speak. We'll make sure that everyone gets their fair say. Obviously, you will all have read your papers in advance of the meeting, so you get them 1 week in advance. So if you have any points to clarify that are for your understanding rather than for discussion, or if you spot any intentional spelling errors or anything like that, always do contact the officer listed on the report, I think, in advance. They're here to help. They're here to help clarify that stuff for you. And although I don't want to speak on behalf of any officers, I think they'd far rather take that time during their working day than sit here and go through it, if it is a matter for your understanding rather than a point of discussion. And then once we've discussed any item, we will go through it, summarise, and make some notes, ensure we've noted everything salient for the minutes. And then, depending on what the report requires of us, we will either agree to note it or vote on whatever is asked of us. In my experience in this committee, and in most committees, to be fair, we usually do get a consensus, because I think the officers do a good job and bring us good things. But if there is anything that is thrown up that you feel that you can't agree on, that you can't reach consensus on, we do, during the discussion, have the option to raise any proposals for amendments that would make you a bit happier about it. And then we can, discuss that and vote on that as well. The caveat to that, with licensing, obviously, it's a regulatory committee, so there will be hard legal limits on what we can change. We can't just change things to how we would like them all the time. But given that any report, usually comes to us over a period of months and draft forms, you'll be able to raise any issues at the appropriate time and we can discuss those rather than doing so at the last second. But I want you to, understand all the options you have in this room. I hope that makes sense. Finally, we will look at the work programme, which is the items listed to come over the next couple of meetings, and then we will close, hopefully before the pubs do. And I'm on a learning curve as well, so shout if there's anything you're not sure of or you think that is not quite right, and we will learn together as we go. And that's about the size of it, really. So on to the actual stuff of the evening. Apologies for absence and substitutions. I've received apologies from Councillor Minus-Bound, and Councillor Slimming is substituting for Councillor Bound. Are there any other apologies or substitutions?
I think everyone else is here.
Councillor Minus-Bound, apologies and substitutions.
Right, okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Perry's on the committee anyway.
On the committee?
Yeah, Councillor Perry's on the committee.
Yes.
Yeah, it changed at full council.
I haven't quite got everyone off by heart who's on what committee yet, so thanks for clarifying that. But yes, Councillor Perry is on the committee already.
Yeah.
So there are any other substitutions or apologies? No? Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to item 2, which is nominations for Vice Chair and a seconder. If we have more than one nomination, we'll take it to a vote. Councillor Phillimore. Yeah.
I'd like to propose Councillor Jenkin, please.
Thank you very much. That's a proposal for Councillor Jenkin. Councillor Chatburn seconded. Thank you. Do we have any other nominations at all? Okay. Councillor Jenkin by a landslide. Thank you very much. Nice and easy. Are there any declarations of interest at all? No? Okay, moving on. Urgent matters. I'm not aware of there being any urgent matters. Do we? No? Okay, no urgent matters today. Minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of February 2026. Does the committee agree that the minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of February 26 are an accurate record? Agreed. Can you remind me to sign those afterwards?
Yeah.
I'll sign them after the meeting so you don't have to wait while I wield a pen. So we move on to the first proper item, item 6, the draft animal licensing policy 26 through 31. We want to approve it for consultation. I will ask Emma to introduce that report.
Helps if I press the right button so you can hear me. Good evening, everybody. So the animal licensing policy, if you've been with us for a while, you will know that this is the second version of animal licensing policy. Animal licensing is still a relatively new area within licensing. It's only 20 years old, which makes it virtually a baby compared to some of the stuff that we do. So the Animal Welfare Act 2006 was introduced, and it started saying that we needed to legislate some forms, so pet shops and different bits and pieces, and it has evolved since that, and it is an ever-evolving beast that is being discussed widely for the protection of animals within our country. So in April this year, the primate legislation came into force, and so has now been added to the policy. This is a very draft policy because there has been quite a few changes and different bits and pieces since we reviewed it 5 years ago last time, where it was quite a new thing for this authority. So what we want to do is make sure that our policy reflects the current legislation, the statutory guidance, best practice, and that is accessible to people, that people can understand it, because animal licensing, we have 2 qualified animal licensing officers who you met last week, Andy and Rianne. It's not the easiest to manoeuvre for us as professionals, let alone for members of the public. And we were discussing it beforehand, and I'm sure the Chair's going to raise her points again so you can hear that there are bits within the current policy that don't remain incredibly clear. and we really want a lot of feedback on this. I've already spoken to the vets that we employ to come out to do specific types of inspections with us. We are very lucky within Basingstoke that we actually cover, apart from dangerous wild animals, we cover every single licence type, which not all authorities do. So our officers get to go out and do things with horses, animals for exhibition. We've got some alpacas that get walked, and we've got dog trainers. We've got massive home boarders, which is the trend all over the country, and we still have kennels as well. But we want to make sure that they are regulated properly, and we can only do that if you understand what we are trying to tell you, and it's not the most straightforward piece of legislation.
Thank you, Emma. Would anyone like to kick us off with any Councillor Testain?
Thank you, Stacey. I've gone through this actually, and the key things, I don't know if you've already talked about this, would be the tailoring and proportional guidance that would be given to things like particularly like animal charities. So we're talking about things like, obviously we've got helping cats and dogs. Theoretically, if they end up selling those dogs on, even if it's covering costs, I'm sure they would therefore be liable. And looking at the licence fees, they look to be pretty high if they've got to pay that each year. So I wondered whether there was anything consideration. So it doesn't come across clearly in there. Those sorts of things aren't mentioned. You've also got the issue of where you talk about the multi-property franchise type model, where so theoretically the animals that go out to foster in people's homes, those technically would then become premises. So how that would be managed is the main thing. So it's that. Had a whole load of questions came out of this, but it's really about this proportionality, clarity, the unclearness on the foster networks. And the other thing I wanted to ask about was the star rating. Now, I know I've looked at this before for licences with animals, and there was very little on the website as to who is. So I don't know if it's just because we don't have a lot of licences given out at the moment, but it feels that there isn't like total transparency of who's doing this in the borough, and where they all are, and whether obviously if some of this stuff becomes quite onerous, whether it will then encourage people to go under the radar, because obviously you get people that do like private breeding and stuff as well. So that will do for now.
Just to come back on that point for you, so we met with somebody that we use who is a national contractor. So I know that when you all go to restaurants, you walk up and there are a number of stars on their doors. So we subscribe to paws on the doors, which now every council in the whole of England subscribes to. It is on our website, but we were having a discussion actually this morning with them saying that it's not clear enough, and that we would like to take ownership of that so we can make it clearer to the public in Basingstoke, and it is something that I am taking to the next portfolio holder meeting.
May I on that point, I remember when I looked, I think there was only about 3 people that were registered on the scheme when I looked on the website. This was quite a while back. I haven't checked it again, but I'm sure we've got a lot more than that would potentially be liable for that.
There's 23 registered on the scheme at the minute in ours. Obviously, they do need to give consent, and some of the businesses don't give consent because of that. So we have a gentleman who trains dogs. He trains Rottweilers. He does this corporately for businesses. He doesn't want his details published, but you can see his star rating if you look through public access. It's also available there. But again, that is something that we do need to make clearer, because transparency is what we're trying to aim for here.
Councillor Jenkin.
So what about the other questions about the dog charities and things like that?
So the RSPCA currently have a charter that covers the charities. So obviously we can add that information into the policy. We have a couple of franchises So obviously we just need to make that clearer how that impacts and who has the legal responsibility when it is a franchise and there are other businesses attached to it. But I've noted it down to make sure that's updated.
Thank you, Chair. My point is very similar. There doesn't seem to be much proportionality within the document. So I was lucky enough to go out for a visit with one of the inspectors, and it was a lady who boards 4 dogs for money. She's not looking for new clients, so that was her whole workload. But she still had the same, I think it was 90-page form every 3 years or whatever it was, which she had consistently completed, and she said that she was happy doing it, but it felt quite onerous on us to put something that size on someone who is, doing something they love, kind of coming to the end of their career. Is there any way that we could kind of add some proportionality in there? Is there a way we can do, with the inspectors' visits, reducing some of the workload for those who choose to look after animals, but still keeping the animals safe? And I have a second question, if that's all right.
No. It's a legal requirement that they have to complete the full assessment every time that they are inspected. There is no proportionality within the legislation. The inspection standards are set within the legislation and we don't have any wiggle room for those, unfortunately. And yes, like I said at the beginning, it is a massive undertaking, the animal licensing, and it is confusing because it is a huge form, and we feel as well for our home boarders, but unfortunately until the legislation is changed, that's unfortunately what they're going to have to continue doing. And most of our home boarders are 5 stars, so it is every 3 years, rather than obviously if you get less stars, it's 1 year, 2 years or 3 years, depending on where you sit in that matrix.
So just to come back on the stars before I move on to the second question, it was kind of explained to me that this boarder wasn't able to get 5 stars because they didn't offer some of the things in within the document, and so they sat at 3 stars and then they had to explain that every time somebody asked about it. Is there maybe a way we can explain the star system slightly better to remove that stigma of not being 5-star? And then the second question, I also found out that this doesn't cover any of the vets or anyone, we don't do licensing for vets or anyone like that, and that was quite surprising to me because it seemed like these are places that you would expect to be licensed and to give the best possible care. And if I were looking for a star system on someone who was looking after pets, it would be from the vet.
Okay, so with the SAR system, yes, so I've noted that down that we need additional detail to explain for those who cannot reach the maximum standards just because of the facilities that they provide within their homes don't meet those of the national standard, or the room sizes are different. Obviously, you went out for an inspection, there's an awful lot of questions that they go through. Vets answer to somebody else, not to us. They do answer to a board, a national board, but they aren't licensed through us in the same way that the doctors answer to the NHS. It's not in the legislation. We can't go out and assess them and license them because it's not under the regime.
Thank you.
Councillor Ganesh.
Thank you. I was going to ask about the vet, but it's been asked. As an authority, do we get many sort of operating without license or illegal breeding in our boundaries? Or do we have sort of an enforcement officers working on that, or do we get a lot of workload around that?
So we do get a number of inquiries about illegal breeding or illegal puppy sales. The one thing, so we have been involved in a prosecution case that was done by Rushmore rather than us, because the actual person lived there. The majority of people who undertake these activities don't undertake them in the area that they live, and obviously licensing is quite compact in the fact that we can only enforce within our own boundaries, but we can information share with others, and the animal officers meet regularly. They're actually all meeting tomorrow to discuss prevalent issues. They're going to be talking about primates and things like illegal breeding. We don't get a lot of reports in Basingstoke, but every one the officers do follow up on.
Was it Andrew? I thought I saw someone, raise a hand did you want to say something? No, okay. I saw someone raise a hand behind Jay and I wasn't sure I caught it. Go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for not notifying earlier on this. I only just spotted it myself a minute ago on page 12. The dates don't appear to be... Yeah, you've got it, okay. I just thought it might be more of an issue for the end date of the 7th of August, which will presumably be the 14th of August. It's 1 week, set 1 week early. It says that we're considering the report on the 8th of June instead of tonight. Okay, thanks.
Yes, no, I wrote the report as we were booking the training and put the dates for the training in rather than the dates for the, so obviously we'll be considering the report, and I even wrote it on here to say it and completely forgot. On the 15th, it will go out on the 17th for consultation, and it will finish on the 12th of August, which will be the Wednesday at 5 p.m.
Were there any other points for the time being? Councillor Jenkins, go ahead.
I think I probably should have said it when I was speaking earlier, but I just wanted to say that the officers I went out with, the animal welfare officer and the inspection licensing officer, were absolutely brilliant. So I just want that on the record, please.
Lovely, always good to get a thumbs up. Jackie.
I just wanted to ask about, obviously talking about the onerous forms and things, do you provide some support, particularly to new people that come into this, to make sure they do it, or are they left to get on with it? And how successful do you think the enforcements are? You know, are we fully resourced to make sure we get this? Because obviously it feels to me that there is a lot of, you know, it's a bit of an unknown as to what's going on behind the scenes.
So any new licensee, either Rhiannon or Andy, spends a considerable amount of time with them. We have copies of documents, example forms of what they need. We have templates for everything that we ask them for. On the website, if you look through the different proformas for the different license types, there are all of the individual requirements, and in the background our animal welfare officers will provide all of those. They will talk through, they will meet with the people, and to make sure that it's as easy a process as possible. It's not an easy process, but as possible. And you had a second part of the question.
Sorry, there is something else I noticed. The links in the document are wrong. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Councillor Phillimore.
Yeah, sorry for being a little bit dense. But how does one actually get a licence? Because it says here decisions are based on statutory tests. Is that similar to alcohol tests, or is it that someone has to pass with flying colours, or what?
So the statutory test for animal licensing is the 90-page form that Councillor Jenkins was talking about. So different levels and different licence types have different specific requirements. So say when you're being a taxi driver, we require them to be fit and proper. To be an animal licence holder, you not only have to be fit and proper, you have to create the right environment, you have to have a fire evacuation plan, you have to have a health plan. There is a huge matrix of information that needs to be provided, and those are the statutory requirements.
Councillor Slimming.
Thank you. I was quite amazed at the beginning of the introduction in the paper that you said this was amalgamation of a number of policies, and it was to make it simpler and more straightforward. So my question was, how many policies have been replaced by this single one? And is it really that transparent and simple to follow? Because I found myself reading the same things over again, but maybe that was maybe just me. And the other question I had was, I know you're going out for consultation. Now, you've mentioned vets, obviously, as somebody that you are going to go to. Who else are you choosing particularly? Obviously, members of the public can be aware of it. I'm sure you're going to do a press release about it. But who else particularly would you expect to be able to feed back on this report? Because obviously that consultation will presumably colour what you actually put out as a final version.
So, as I said in the introduction, this is a very draft, and we are quite aware that it isn't as transparent or easy to read as we would like it to be. And obviously, when you do this as your everyday job, it's even more difficult to explain to people who aren't used to the jargon, aren't used to doing it as well. The consultation, it will go to the RSPCA, it will go to animal charities, it will go to the responsible authorities, it will go, it's continuing to be looked at by legal, it is with all of you lot to make any comments that you want. It will go on the website for the public, it will go to all current licence holders, it will go to the vets that we currently use and other vets within the area that are linked in with our stray dogs. It goes out to an awful lot of people. Whether they respond is a different story, but we really hope to get a lot of feedback so we can make this the most robust policy that we can make it.
Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. If it's national regulation and national policies, what is the purpose in the consultation? Is that to give feedback to this council or to national bodies? I'd just like to be a bit clearer on what the objectives are, because it's going to cost a lot of time and money. But if it's just to shuffle some paper around and not change anything or change any policies, then it seems questionable about its value.
So the purpose of the consultation is to get the feedback. We need our policy for Basingstoke and Dean to show the national policy in a way that the public can understand, that it's easy and transparent for them, that you as councillors are happy that we are performing our duties and explaining it in the best possible way to those who are engaging with us to get a licensing. I do hope that there is a lot of feedback on this policy because, like I said at the beginning, it's still a very relatively new area. The primate stuff is all brand new. We still haven't had all of the guidance from central government. It comes through in drips and drabs. But yeah, we are always open to feedback and consultation responses. If it doesn't make sense to you, it won't make sense to the public. And that is obviously your role as the councillors, is to make it make sense to the people who will be our licence holders.
Councillor Ganesh, and then I'll come to you, Jackie.
National policy that we'll be going out and consulting. Do we have any sort of a mechanism to strengthen the policy if the feedback come back and say, okay, we probably may have to strengthen some of the areas. Do we still have that mandate, or can we do it, or is there a mechanism that we can?
So periodically there are central government consultations on different bits of licensing legislation. Obviously the last one that we commented on was the primate changes that happened in April, but it's led by central government, it's not led by us. We do feedback through the IOL, which is the Institute of Licensing, which we are all members of, but individually as councils we don't have that power to make national changes. So if we just publish the national legislation for people, they would not engage with us at all, because even those of us that read this sort of legislation every day, the animal licensing stuff in particular is quite complex. So we want to present that in a way that people do engage with us, that they do get licenses if they require licenses. Councillor Hart mentioned before, I think the policy sounds like everyone who has a pet needs a licence, and that's not true. There are financial thresholds. Your cat can have a couple of kittens and you can sell them on Gumtree if you're not making a certain amount of money. It is unfortunately really complicated, but we want to try and make it as unmuddy as possible while projecting what the national standards are.
Jackie?
I just wanted to ask about the consultation. I know because in the next paper we've got there was no responses, and although you say you'd like there to be good responses, a good number of responses I should say, and I just wanted just a suggestion. I was wondering whether it would be worth making sure that within the consultation you have an option for people to give feedback to say that they're happy with it or that they have no comments on it, just to give you that acknowledgement that it has actually been looked at, because a lot of the time people just aren't interested, and if nobody gets to see it then obviously that will be really concerning. And I know, obviously it's really challenging to get public consultations completed by the public. There's usually very low response rates. So this in particular is obviously quite niche in itself, so there is a risk that you will actually have very little from it. So I just don't know what you think about that.
I think that's a really sensible suggestion, because generally people think if they haven't commented to us, so other policies that we've gone out for, I've been in meetings with the police and fire afterwards and they were like, well, we didn't comment because it's fine. And I was like, but you haven't actually responded to us in any way to say that. And they were like, well, we were doing other things. And that does happen quite a lot. So having something to say, if you have no comment, can you just return it, is actually a really sensible idea. Thank you.
Kevin?
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, I think I'm in thick. Is this consultation aimed at writing a policy based on national regulations to enable to explain it clearly to council members? Because if it is, it seems a bit strange to go to consultation to those people. I mean, if everything is based on national legislation, I believe the government produced guidance on how to implement those policies. I'm not sure what's coming out of this. Or am I being stupid? You can say yes.
They do produce guidance, but the guidance isn't interpretable by a layperson, and that is what we are aiming for, because they are our customers, they are the people that we need to support, and all of our legislation comes with guidance. Sometimes officers have to sit and discuss with legal what they think that the guidance means.
Jay, and then I'll come back to you, Kevin.
So obviously you're making an LGR point there. So I already manage Basingstoke and Hart already. It's a shared service. This will be a shared policy and it will be reviewed by their committee as well and their licence holders. The way things are done at the minute, we have had a look at the policy that is held by Rushmore and we are comparing all of our policies and having a look at best practice and taking those forward as we are doing our reviews. So that is happening. I meet regularly with the other licensing leads for Hampshire and Shelley from Rushmore is one of those and we do discuss these issues.
Kevin?
It's a supplementary question really to Councillor Ganesh. Is that if this work is not aimed at improving animal welfare, it's aimed at improving the understanding of it, what's the downside to just delaying it for a couple of years and doing the same consultation for Hart, Rushmore and Basingstoke and Dean altogether, and just do it once rather than twice?
So it's not a legal requirement for us to have a policy in this area, but it is best practice. So if there are issues, then councillors know what officers are working to, what standards they are working to, what enforcement guidance that they are doing. We try and keep best practice. There is a cycle where all of these policies come back every 3-5 years, depending on what sort of policy they are. It will quickly turn around where they all get merged through LGR, but to try and do those all at once, out of cycle, would be horrific for the teams and for the committees, because there would be an awful lot and too much for the capacity of the teams. So remaining in cycle is the best way to move things forward, because some of them, Licensing Act and Gambling Act, are almost identical already. There are differences between their animal policy and ours, but not hugely that couldn't in the next rotation be merged together. But we need to make sure that we still have a robust policy until LGR happens.
We spoke on this beforehand anyway, and you've already talked a little bit about this. And I think, as some of my colleagues have said, I kind of raised the readability of this, and we don't need to sort of belabour that point. But I wonder if, and I don't want to on my very first committee start overloading everyone with suggestions of subgroups and tasks and finishes and whatever, but I do wonder, because although we do see things in draft form, I wonder if we're liable to see this in draft again post consultation and get a proper opportunity to look at it from a readability perspective, or whether we're likely to, the next time we see it, it will be post consultation, post all of those responses, and post that work, and then we will have our usual kind of week or week and a day to look at it. Because I think if that is the case, there isn't a huge amount of sense in, say, my looking at this now and say, well, that would make more sense if you just put that bit there and that bit there and amend that paragraph and switch that bit and merge that bit. But because it will then potentially change as a result of the consultation. But I wonder if there is space for anyone who's interested in doing so. I have quite a passion for plain English and accessibility of documents, and whether there is scope for us to, at a sensible point for you and the team, be able to review it for that purpose before it comes to the point of coming in front of us again.
Yes.
Great.
You just need to, as the committee, you can schedule that in. You are an internal consultee. We continue to consult internally with our legal colleagues and other people. So yeah, you can just be part of that process.
Thank you very much. That was easy. Well, rather than scheduling groups and things, I think perhaps it might be just an idea that if we make a note that at a sensible point where the material of it, the meat of it, is unlikely to change much further, perhaps we could have it sent round to the committee at that point. So it won't necessarily wait for a meeting, but it will give people who want to chance to really go through it and give any feedback on that, rather than ask anyone to put their hands in the air for an extra subgroup or anything like that, if that's acceptable to everyone. And of course, if you don't particularly want to, then I won't know if you don't reply. So, yeah. Were there any other comments or questions on this item? No? Okay. So just to briefly summarise, and please do shout if I didn't note anything, I'm sure Phil will have as well, but we've touched on proportionality for different sizes of different sort of homes and settings, consideration for organisations like charities and their liability there, looking at explainers for the star ratings and those settings that have prohibitions to getting the fullest ratings, and support for new people doing this work, and suggestion on having the ability to give feedback, just to give a thumbs up and say that one is happy with it, and an in-advance review for any committee members that would like to scrutinise this from an accessibility point of view, and try and help make it a bit easier, because of course we're reading it like lay people. I don't know anything about this area of work, so it's very easy for me to say, well, that doesn't make sense. Was there anything else that anyone wanted to add there? Okay, so does the committee agree to approve the draft animal licensing policy 26 through 31 for consultation, and delegate authority to the licensing team leader in consultation with the chair of the licensing committee to make any necessary minor alterations or typographical corrections to the policy before it is published?
Sorry, Stacey, I'm just thinking on this, because it is so difficult to read, would it actually make more sense that it becomes a bit more readable before it even goes out to consultation? Dare I say that?
Well, I don't know if you dare, but you did. I don't know. I mean, I'll let Emma answer that. I mean, my only initial thought would be, I guess, that I'm not sure how you would necessarily make it so without the feedback of the layperson reading it, if it is for the layperson.
I think we've just come up with various suggestions to improve it already. So whether we see that first before it goes out.
What would the time frame be? I forget off the top of my head when this is due to go out.
So it's not coming back till the November committee, so it needs to be written by October. So it does give us some wiggle room.
What are we looking at in terms of consultation dates to go out, if we were to try and make some accessibility feedback or give that to you before it were to go out to consultation?
Let me just grab my calendar.
Bear with.
I'm just going to work backwards. We could push it back 3 weeks for it still to return, and there'll be time to write the new committee report.
So when would you need feedback by, do you reckon? If we were to...
What, to get the consultation done in 3 weeks? 2 weeks?
2 weeks
And
hence.
then I can block something out on the 3rd week.
So we've got 2 weeks from this point, if we want to give any specific feedback on readability, in order to get that out to consultation, and then get it back and then get it in front of us again. Thank Thank you, Jackie. Yeah, that's a good suggestion. So if you have any thoughts, please send them to Emma. And does the committee agree to, I'm not going to read it all again, as I said before, on that basis? Thank you very much. Which moves us, if we're ready then, on to item 7, adoption of the amended Street Trader Policy 2026 through 2031 following consultation. Emma, if you'd like to introduce that one, please.
So if you were here at the last meeting, you'll know that we only made minor adjustments to the current street trader policy to try and improve it. So we've added additional timeframes for people who want to trade at things like festivals. We got no official responses to the 6-week consultation that took place between the 2nd of February and the 16th of March. But we have had several phone conversations with officers for people who are very happy that this hopefully will be adopted this evening so they can start getting their shorter term licences for festivals, and lots of those conversations have been going on with officers even if they didn't feedback formally when we were doing it. Lots of the traders have turned around and said actually offering a 3-month, a 6-month and an annual gives them greater flexibility when they are paying for things like insurance and bits and pieces, and where it's slightly iffy out there, it gives them a little bit more safeguard rather than paying annually an awful lot of money for something that actually might not work. So yes, we had no consultations, responses, and I don't actually have anything else on that. We only obviously changed to make sure that they knew that they couldn't transfer their licences and added those extra time slots in.
Thank you. Does anyone have any issues or questions or comments to raise on this one? Jackie?
Can you just clarify, you said you had conversations from people and officers, did you think that was where there wasn't responses, those people were coming back to say they were quite happy with things?
So these are current conversations about people who are asking to obtain licences, and so 2 of them are existing licence holders who currently hold annual licences who want to change the duration of their licence and do it in 6 monthly chunks, and a couple of them are new and wanted to support some of the local festivals with street trading, and obviously that wasn't an option before because we didn't have the up to 7 day, we just had annual. So
Councillor Ganesh.
Sorry, the clarification I was looking for around the justification for restricting the transferring the trading pitch or moving, then you'll have to go through the process all over again.
Because it's something that's been done in error previously, it's not allowed under the legislation. So we just made it clear so that doesn't happen going forward.
Any other points? Jackie?
When I read through this, because excuse the fact that I obviously haven't been involved with this particular one, but I thought this is also about like cafe seating outside, and I thought that would be quite helpful to have it clarified that it's not, because that's after I did a bit of digging I discovered it isn't to do with that. But obviously there is a sort of a grey area around it, and then you've obviously got, if people did have a van and they put up little tables which could be at festivals, if there's any ruling around that, but just making that clarification a bit clearer, so if somebody who's thinking about doing a food business wants to understand that, then obviously a layperson who's, you know, just having a go can then read it and then they'd understand that better. Does that make sense?
Yes, so when our officers have initial consultations, that one of the other things that they provide is the furniture on the highways policy, which is our tables and chairs that got approved last year.
Any other points? No? Okay. Well, that was a fairly simple one then. I think Phil's got the point there on clarification around the furniture. So, does the committee agree to approve the street trader policy 2026 to 2031 and delegate authority to the licensing team leader in consultation with the chair of the licensing committee to make any necessary minor alterations or typographical corrections to the policy before it is published? Agreed. Thank you. Which finishes up the meat of the work today. We are going to go on now to look at the work programme and what we'll be doing over the next couple of months. As part of this, just a note to say, you will have all received the email asking you to attend an extra licensing committee meeting on the 7th of July. And just for clarification, I just wanted to explain what that was about. So having given me my "this is how you chair a meeting" brief, Phil said there will never be any urgent matters and basically jinxed us all. So almost immediately, I got a call from Tom Payne, and there has been a request to review the Hackney licensing fees. And this is something that does need to be looked at with some expediency, and due to the way our calendars match up with getting it in front of us or getting it in front of Cabinet. I was basically sort of on day one given three choices. We could either shoehorn it into tonight's meeting, which I didn't feel was ideal, given that it's the first meeting of the year. We do have some newly elected councillors among us. It's a really, really important thing to scrutinise, and I might have made a right hash of it as well. Or scheduling an extra meeting, or having it go straight to Cabinet without any scrutiny from this committee. And I don't know how you feel about it. I didn't feel comfortable with that third option. I thought that that's what we're here to do, and it was important that we do it. So if it needed to be done in that time frame, then that's why the extra meeting was needed. So that's why I went ahead and made that decision unilaterally, and my apologies for taking an extra evening out of your busy diaries. But if you do have any questions on that, I'm happy to chat about it as well. I hope that makes sense. Now, looking ahead to the rest of the work programme, Emma, do you want to walk us through?
So we have our very exciting November meeting, which will be the Licensing Act policy, which will be the first time I've ever changed a Licensing Act policy to add in the Martin's Law bits and pieces. The Gambling Act policy will also, because I've put Licensing Act twice, one of them's actually the Gambling Act. There is no changes to the Gambling Act, but it is on its rotation. Licensing and Gambling Act, for those that are new, come back one every 3 years, one every 5 years, whether there's any changes or not, because they have to be re-scrutinised by the committee. It's in the legislation. We also have the joys of fees and charges in November. So looking at the fees and charges for the next financial year, which will then end up going to council in February along with the budget, but obviously you get to review them first. So you review not only the licensing fees, but the fees that are also regulatory services, so things like HMOs and different bits and pieces that come under EH also come through this committee. And the animal policy will return in November to be adopted, hopefully, and if not, obviously, papers don't have to be adopted when they come back. You can ask for them to go back out and be reviewed again. And then February, we've got the wonderful policies coming back after their consultations, and our 5-year annual review of the charity collections policy.
We also have workplace visits on the week commencing the 6th and 13th of July, I believe. So would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
So every 2 years we offer for the councillors, both here and in Hart, to go out and visit with the officers. Some of you have done it many times, some of you are brand new and won't have done it at all. I will put together a email for Phil, who will then circulate to you all. The AM slots start at 9:30, the PM slots start at 1 PM. And we will send out all of the slots. It's first come, first served. There is enough for everybody to go out if they want to, and then we'll allocate you an officer once people have put their hands up. Generally, we take a maximum of 2 councillors out per officer, because otherwise, depending on what they're going to do, it can overwhelm some of the licence holders.
Do you have any late evening slots to check some of the licensed premises in terms of noise, or if there's anything else that we could?
So we do quarterly nighttime enforcement that generally starts at 7 o'clock and ends about 2 AM in the morning. Generally, we don't take councillors out on those because it's quite hard going. Last time it rained the entire time. There is one of those slots coming up if you would really like to go out with the officers on late night enforcement. Obviously we don't publish those dates for specific reasons, but that is something that we can discuss.
And there aren't any per diems available either. Were there any other questions, Johnny?
I'd also be interested in the evenings.
Yeah, so if you have interest in that, if you can let Phil know, and then I can work it out with the officers.
And if you do us all the courtesy of letting us know what pub and where, then we can all avoid going down our own locals. Kevin? Indeed, yeah. Kevin?
Thank you, Chair. The work programme has got all of these details that you've published here to cover in the next 12 months. It would be really useful to me, I don't know whether it's useful to other people, to know how many policies come within the jurisdiction of this licensing committee that are not on that work programme, and also with those that are on the work programme, which are on 1 year cycle of review, 2 year cycle of review, 5 year cycle of review. It would just be useful information.
I have a forward plan that holds all of that information. I can share that with Phil, then he can share that with you.
Great, thank you. There is also, at the end of the work programme, you might have noticed the Licensing Service Committee report summary, which is something that some of us requested at the last meeting. And it's just a really, really good summary of everything the team does, which I think for those of us, when we got started on this committee a couple of years ago, pointed out that although we see the stuff that comes in front of us, we don't necessarily have an understanding of what the team does all the time. And it's not just, reviewing forms that are applications for various licenses, but they do an awful lot of really, really productive and proactive and positive work to keep the community safe in all sorts of areas. So I think that that was a really, really great summary to read, and thank you to Emma for putting that together. And we had a brief chat beforehand and agreed that it would be good to have that in an updated, just a few bullet points every meeting of what they've done since last time, basically. So we've got that on an ongoing basis. So that will be there now, and perhaps as part of that, you can add on that bit of information that Councillor Chatburn was just talking about in the bottom half of that, so we know not just what's coming up on the work programme necessarily, but what the next sort of 2-5 years looks like in those cycles as well. Did anyone have anything else to say on the work programme or anything attached to it? No? Okay. Does the committee agree to note the work programme? Thank you very much. And unless there are any confidential or exempt items to be considered? No? Then I call this meeting closed. My laptop is almost always wrong. 7:29, 7:30, let's just say, rounding up. Thank you very much.